2, 1.
Good evening. The Thursday, October 23rd, 2025 meeting of the Brisbane Planning Commission will now come to order. Staff, please call the roll.
Commissioner Gooding.
Present.
Commissioner Patel. Here. Commissioner Sayasan.
Here.
The record show Commissioners Funka and Lau are absent.
Okay, may I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, next is the consent calendar. If there is any member of the public who would like to remove an item from the consent calendar, please do so now. Staff, can you set a 30-second timer for folks at home? Any commissioner would like to remove an item? No?
No,
Okay.
thank you.
Thirty seconds has elapsed. No one's raised their hand.
Okay, may I have a motion to adopt the consent calendar?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next is oral communications. If anyone wishes to address the commission concerning items not on tonight's agenda, please do so now. Staff, can you set a timer for 1 minute?
$15 seconds. $60 has elapsed. No one's raised
Okay.
their hand.
Thank you. Next is written communications. We did receive written comment from the Open Space and Ecology Committee on the General Plan Open Space Element, which is the subject of tonight's workshop. New or old business, we have none, so we will turn now to the workshop. And tonight we have a workshop to discuss proposed amendment to the General Plan Open Space Element. Staff, may we have the presentation?
Yes, good evening, and thank you, Planning Commission. The purpose of this workshop is to provide the Commission with an opportunity to comment on the open space element draft in advance of the public hearing, in which you'd provide a recommendation to the City Council. This follows up on the workshop that was held on April 10th of this year. Since that workshop, staff held workshops with the Parks and Recreation Commission, Open Space and Ecology Committee, and the IDEA Committee. The draft element that's attached to this, the memo that you received, generally reflects the comments received by these city bodies, except we do need to acknowledge that the letter that was received from OSEC, which followed, essentially, there was a workshop held last month, about a month ago, and so this adds to their comments that they provided then. And so staff will be going through their memo in further detail to address their comments, and so I wasn't intending to go point by point through those. A number of those may already be essentially addressed since the last update, so that's another reason for staff to go through that separately. The draft element that's before you retains the general organizational structure that you saw on April 10th. However, in response to OSEC's comments that were earlier this summer, more of the policies and programs from the adopted 1994 element have been carried forward to the current draft. And as we previously discussed, the policies and programs from the adopted element are reorganized, and many have been edited for clarity, and this still holds true. Proposed goals, policies, and programs that are totally new compared to the adopted element are shown in red in the draft. Also, a comparison table of the proposed to previously adopted goals, policies, and programs was provided in your memo. And staff also intends to include a focused update to the land use element and zoning with this amendment. And I'm going to share screen here. So this is the current land use diagram, and just draw your attention to the area in the bright yellow at the bottom, the Brisbane acres. And so it'll change from essentially residential to, let's see if it comes up here. There we go. So these are, the vast majority are parcels that the city has purchased in the last 20 plus years. There are some privately held, what we would call paper street parcels that were intended for roadways to service those parcels, which would be essentially not necessary. And there's one essentially what I'd call kind of an island in the back of these parcels, close to where the open, and the word open is an open space, so that's very isolated, and so that would be included as well. And it's really not accessible except through all that open space. So so that's what we would do for the land use element, land use element, but also the land use diagram. And then the zoning would follow that same kind of pattern. And so next steps essentially outlined here, and this does represent a change from what you saw in your memo. Once we've incorporated any further comments at this stage, staff will be sending the draft out for outside agency comment. This will include a notification to Native American tribes to see if they would like a consult. This is a state law requirement. Staff will then schedule this for public hearing at the Planning Commission for your recommendation to City Council. So that would come in January, and then February for City Council hearing for adoption. So with that, I'll turn it over to the Commission if you have any comments, questions, discussion.
Okay, thank you, Ken. Commissioner Patel, do you have any questions?
I don't.
Commissioner Gooding?
No, thank you.
Okay, yeah, I went through OSEC's comments. So did you say that all of those are being adopted, or did you want further comments from us on that?
So some of these comments are essentially, like there were some comments related to timing, and in their draft, staff had included a table that had timing and responsible bodies. And following up on that, that's not a state requirement, and staff felt this is probably better to have actually as a more of a implementation plan type detail versus embedding it actually in the element. So there's a lot of those comments that I would say are moot now. Also, there were comments that related to mapping and tables of vacant properties, and those were also included in that draft a month ago, and on further consideration, it makes sense to staff to have that as a separate document also, so that it stays as a living document, and that every time that needs to be updated, we don't have to bring this back to have a general plan amendment, and we keep it consistent. There's some other detailed ones that have to do with some redundancy noted in some of the programs, and so staff will definitely be taking a look at those and really take a look at all these and see that they're addressed. It's
Specifically, so when they ask for consistency with the language in the state code and our code, so that'll be the same.
yes, staff will look at that for sure.
And-
Yes.
And the acronyms, tables for that and the glossary,
Yeah,
okay.
I think that's a good point.
What about our efforts, ongoing efforts for acquisition? Will that be updated continuously, or will that be reported on an annual basis? Did staff was there a decision reached on that?
I think that's something that we'll want to consider a bit more in terms of how to implement the ordinance. So we took out the timing out of the programs, but there are certain programs actually that might be worded, and I'd have to look specifically at that one, that might say annually or on an ongoing basis. And so staff will definitely consider that, but I think it's something that the intent is that there would be annual reporting to City Council, and that's embedded in the programs in that first chapter of the element. And so I would see that as annual reporting, but we would definitely be keeping tables and maps, those sorts of things, up to date as we go, versus waiting until the end of a year to compile information.
And is it possible, maybe even for us to, I don't know, in the city website, to have a link that updates, like when we've acquired a certain property or we're in the process of trying to get a property? Is that something that could be updated versus reported at the end of a year, like this is what happened?
John may want to chime in on this. I think there might be certain sensitivity to negotiations that might be ongoing for acquisition. And
Well, certainly when a property is acquired, I don't want to speak for the GIS people. I don't know how quickly they can turn that around, but I don't see any real problem with doing that within what's technologically, feasible from a real-time basis once the city, acquires property.
Okay.
It won't be reflected on these, like the open space map on the general plan, but yeah, that could be, like Ken's talking about, implementation documents that can be more nimble than the general plan map.
And OSEC's comments also talked about an open space fund. Is that something we currently have?
Something the council actually had, and then they got rid of it in terms of a dedicated fund. Now they just, on an annual budgetary basis, they make those allocations on an sort of yearly basis.
Okay. And is that something we could include, maybe funding that goes beyond the city's budget to try to think of more creative ways that we can get funding to acquire more lands?
I assume there's some policies that speak to that already, but yeah, that's been practice. A lot of the funds, a lot of the acres properties were acquired by different sort of state bond funds. So that's an ongoing practice the city undertakes.
Okay, and I have one more comment. So about the health and safety section and the quarry. So is that going to be included as an area that, might present a hazard with the terraces and whatnot?
That's kind of outside the scope of this open space element activity. The quarry will have its own planning application, and if there's a need to amend various components of the general plan to accommodate a project up there, that would be more appropriately considered as part of a development project.
Okay, okay, thank you. Those are my questions. Anyone else have any more or any others? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So does that conclude it then?
That concludes it.
Okay.
Unless
Oh.
there's anybody
Yeah,
in
we
the
should,
public on Zoom. But,
Yeah, let's give I don't know, the public a minute to see if there's any comments.
Fifteen seconds. Okay, 60 seconds has elapsed. No one's raised their hand.
Okay, next is items initiated by staff. Staff, is there anything else to report?
There are a couple of things. The commission had recommended an ADU amendment in the spring, I believe. And that went to council a couple times this year, later in the fall. And they did adopt it. They did make some minor modifications to height limits of ADUs to align, lockstep with state law. There was some flexibility we had been recommended to be built in, and the council decided to align it completely with state law. So they did adopt that. Last council meeting, there was a presentation for property at 150 North Hill, which is a multi-tenant industrial building. And they've indicated that, property owner indicated their desire to convert that property to a residential use. So that was just presented informationally. So if they choose to move forward, that would result in some sort of planning entitlement applications that would be heard by the commission. So it'd be something that may spring up from that. And then forthcoming or upcoming, I believe there's going to be a council sort of workshop on the old 70 Old County Road planning program that's occurred to date, which is the old B of A site, and maybe some preliminary, some of the community feedback will be sort of presented, and I think the hope is that the council will provide some direction in terms of which sort of land use alternative they are interested in proceeding with. So anything else I'm missing?
Okay, thank you. Next is items initiated by the commission. Is there any commissioner who would like to address anything? Okay. Okay, well then, thank you. The meeting is adjourned until the next regular meeting of November 13, 2025. Thank you. Good night.